Former Mayor Michael Feinstein.
So, while I am very much for saving the Civic Auditorium and keeping an open mind about how 4th and Pico might be renovated, I just want to respond briefly to something that I felt was historically inaccurate in the pivot that the ULI slideshow made in terms of talking about the change of use at 4th and Pico. And what the slideshow, thank you Nina Fresco for, wherever you are, for directing me to that, and I looked at that to prepare for today. And what the slideshow says is, well, the school district doesn't want 4th and Pico for a field anymore, therefore the need for that being open space can be changed to developing it here, and that was as deep as the discussion went. And as somebody who watched the community members in the Civic Center specific plan discussion starting in the late 80s, watched it go through the 90s when the open space element came in, and my specific role in going, may he rest in peace, to Frank Schwengel when we had talked about 4th and Pico being open space, and then when nobody was stepping up from the open space community to come forward and people then started talking about putting housing there, I went to Frank and said, Frank, you better get your people down here. And at that point, it was locked in, and I don't remember all the dates and all this, but at that point it was pretty much locked in that 4th and Pico was to be open space, and the type of field use initially was more like we have in Ocean View Park down at the beach. Thank you, I'm so glad Karen, you're nodding. Because I was like questioning, do I remember this clearly? Both the Village Green and the Ocean View parks down at the beach, where people would spontaneously use it as a field, but it wouldn't be necessarily programmed officially as a soccer field. Over time then, after it was already to be open space, people then started saying maybe we got to program it specifically as a soccer field, and then more specifically the school district has its need and should it take it. So this is not a question of if the school district doesn't want it as a soccer field, the need for it for that number of acres to be open space just goes out the window without any further discussion. We have a dozens of acre deficit in the open space element in the city. We had already counted on these acres there. I'm almost done, Maria. Almost counted on those acres being part of our trying to reach our goals. And if we are to change that now, as I was suggesting before, I believe that any capital improvement measure there needs to replace on an acre by acre basis the space we would lose there. Whether it means covering the freeway to have it nearby or somewhere else. The other premises which we had previously and would go out the window if we developed this is this open space was put there in part for the community to accept the density in the housing in the Civic Center, and the people that were going to live in those units were to look across the street and Main Street and have this be open space. And many of us in the community have accepted that we're going to move from Sleepy Beach Town to accept density with open space. We didn't agree to accept density without open space. The final piece is the parking structure behind the Civic Auditorium, or behind the County Court building, excuse me. That was premised on taking that and fighting the hotel behind them who lost the views and their value of the views in their hotel rooms. That was all premised on having 4th and Pico being open space, and we'd be willing to accept that big structure because we're getting something open there. So I just wanted to historically remind people of all these premises that we based early planning on, and if we now choose to develop 4th and Pico, when the open space there was supposed to balance out many other more intensive uses, and we simply throw away that idea of balance, we're going against many years of wisdom and commitments we made to the community. And therefore, I believe this process, it makes it more expensive, it's more difficult to do. I think we have to commit to replacing the open space at 4th and Pico, anything that we take away with it somewhere else and rather close in the community. Thank you.